Commission President Rachel Lyle-Smith, we are ready to begin whenever you are.
Thank you, Ms. Riggs. All right, tonight is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020, and I'm calling the Oregon City Commission work session to order. Ms. Riggs, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
And Mayor Dan Holliday is absent this evening. Commission President Rachel Lyle-Smith.
Here. All right, so our item up is the Thimble Creek Upland Habitat Overlay District update. Ms. Turway.
All right, thank you very much. I shared my screen. Can you guys see that from in the chambers?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Thanks for having me here. Starting in 2006, the city began to work with the community to reimagine the urbanization of land across Beaver Creek Road from the Oregon City High School, was then called the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan area. And we adopted a concept plan, but this past year we finalized that out by applying zoning designations to the sites and doing a couple tweaks to our zoning code so that it would really be implementable. With that, there was a request from the Natural Resources Committee to protect this area identified in blue, that they called Upland Habitat. And so with that request, the City Commission directed staff to work with the Natural Resources Committee to create a new overlay district for the tree protection in this area. So I'm here tonight just to give you an update on this project. So the overlay district itself and the tree protection is only applying to trees. It's not applying to shrubs or general habitat, and it's only applying to trees within that blue area on the previous screen that we showed. And so that was the direction from the commission. There are a lot of trees around that are not in the blue area. However, they have different levels of protection that could apply to those trees. So really the focus was on the edge of the bluff in the upland habitat area. The upland habitat area was identified back from the beginning of the concept plan towards 2006, 2008-ish, when there was a habitat study that was done. So we do have a fair number of regulations for tree protection or disincentives to remove trees, rather. It's a mixture of both. So we have about 7 chapters in our code that have tree removal and mitigation requirements or other types of regulations that would apply to tree removal. And we also have a couple other programs that encourage tree preservation and provide some incentives to do so as well. So this new overlay district would be on top of that existing menu of regulations. So the City Commission directed staff to work with Natural Resources Committee on June 17th of this year. We got straight away to work and started talking about it with the Natural Resources Committee at the very next meeting, which was July 8th. And we've talked about this topic with them at every meeting that they've had since July 8th. They did get a chance to go out on a site visit, and I want to acknowledge the property owners. There's really 2 main groups of property owners in the habitat area, and they were both gracious and to allow us to work with them to create more restrictions on their property, and actually quite excited about doing so as well. The golf course gave us all golf carts, and so we each had our own to do a site visit back in July, and then since then there's been a couple of Natural Resource Committee meetings and further site visits, more targeted than the first, which looked at the whole site in general. So through these site visits, they identified that rather than creating a new overlay district, it would be better to instead designate trees or growth as trees as our heritage tree growth designation, which is a program that we already have codified in our code. The reasons why they felt that this was an appropriate avenue was because the size and the quality of the trees There's larger trees on the edge of the boundary, closer to what would be Oregon City. And then beyond that, it seems to be somewhat of a mixed bag on the southern portion of the overlay district. A lot of those trees were logged not too far ago. And then on the northern portion of the overlay district, there is generally smaller trees and a large variety of species there too, but generally not as nice as some of the ones on the southern piece of the property. They also identified some gaps in continuity. So here's Thimble Creek right here. This is a map. It's a Clackamas County's map, actually, of their tree protections and habitat protections. So they have regulations, and they regulate habitat within 50 feet of the stream and all its tributaries, as well as these corridor areas. So you can see that there's going to be places between where we wanted to regulate trees right here and the stream itself. So in other words, this property here could theoretically remove patches of trees, and it would be habitat, removal of trees, and then another unattached tree area over here. And one of the reasons why this area of habitat was pursued was because it is adjacent to a large forested area. The other thing that the Natural Resources Committee found is that because we already have the various levels of tree protection, so they don't guarantee a tree will not be removed, that they were adequate mechanisms to discourage tree removal and replacement. The Natural Resource Committee felt that heritage tree growth and designation was better because it still had added layers of protections. When you get to become a heritage tree or grove designation, it goes before the City Commission and something gets recorded on the property that identifies its designation. You need special permission to remove that tree as well. The other thing is that those habitat areas are actually quite big, and there's a lot of opportunity to do something in a visible location to the public. They can see large areas of trees. There's plaques generally on a lot of these heritage trees and groves, and it would provide a really good opportunity for public education. The street layout in the Thimble Creek concept plan was really well placed for protection of these trees, so you could see them. The public could engage with them very nicely. Also, sorry about that, it supports our existing program. The Heritage Tree Designation Program has been off to a little bit of a slow start. We do have a lot of champions for the Heritage Tree Designation. I want to honor Dee Dahlstrid, who's done an incredible amount of work, as well as other people in the public to designate heritage trees. But because we could get so many concentration of heritage trees and growth in such a public place when the property does urbanize, it was felt that that could support other properties or to designate heritage trees themselves, and it would be a really good win for the program. The concept plan itself was based on sustainability, and so designation of heritage trees does support some of those themes within the concept plan to maintain and return trees. So the Natural Resources Committee likes that as well. The other thing is that because the trees within the upland habitat area, now that we've had a chance to go on site and see them 15 years after they were designated as potential great upland habitat, we could see that it's a bit of a mixed bag. And doing heritage tree groves is better because we can regulate or incentivize the trees remaining that we want. It's not a blanket. You're just more targeted on what you want to retain. And then the other thing is that we have property owners who honor the large trees on their site and are excited about maintaining them too. And so they're willing to move forward with heritage tree grove designation, which is lovely to hear, and it's lovely to work with them, but it's nice to have someone who also values that program. So here's the original overlay district that the NRC had asked the City Commission to create tree protection for. So there's these three kind of segments. You'll see right here is the city limits as well. What the NRC is proposing is to look at heritage tree or grove designation in these two areas, which are the same as before. But in this northern area, when they went on site, they realized that the trees over here are actually much, much better as far as species and size are concerned. So they're much better suited for heritage tree designation. The reason why NRC didn't originally propose it to the City Commission was because this over here was more contiguous, but knowing that some of that habitat may go, and that now that we've gone on site to take a closer look, these trees are much more suited for heritage designation. So at this point, the city or the Natural Resources Committee is moving forward with property owners to identify which specific trees or groves of trees should be designated. We've identified some preliminarily up here, and we're still working with property owners to create or to identify another site visit for the ones across the golf course property as well. But I just wanted to give an update to the City Commission and let you know what we're doing and give you an opportunity to tell us to slow down and go back to the overlay district designation if that's what you wanted us to do, or if we're okay on taking this slightly different path, which is heritage tree designation.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Turay. Comments, questions from commissioners? Yes. Commissioner McGriff.
Yes, Laura, one of the things that I understand is critical when you're designating trees or you're looking at habitat is how they are generally connected together. So is the NRC looking at any corridors to make connections? Because generally wildlife don't hop from place to place. They go from this corridor to that corridor and then to these other areas.
They are, and that's why the original designation was all those areas along the edge of the hillside. However, the overlay district is really intended on just tree preservation and not that understory habitat as well. There is on that other piece where the northern part, where they switched from being over near the slope to closer to Beaver Creek Road, that area has a stream that's right there, and so it is connected to a stream corridor and habitat there as well.
And I had a question about the statement on page 2, the paragraph under the photograph. It talks about the county. County has identified that tree protection outside the city would be a 50-foot buffer from Thimble Creek outside the UGB or the Metro service area. So we're talking about the blue area being on the county side would extend further than that?
It would only, the overlay district would only apply within the city limits of Oregon City the designation of heritage trees would only be within our city limits, and the overlay district that we were pursuing before was also only in city property. We talked with them a little bit about tree regulations, and they didn't seem interested in adopting stronger tree regulations under their jurisdiction.
Okay, so what I'm asking again is Thimble Creek, if part of it is outside the boundary, then there would be a 50-foot buffer, as I understand it. Okay, so I think in terms of our mapping, it might be good to show that the way the two regulations are connected together, just so it's perfectly clear that just because there's a line here doesn't mean that the habitat or the trees in, but there's something else that our other jurisdiction has got in place as well.
We can do that.
So, Ms. Turay, if I remember correctly, the area kind of in the middle on that same map That's to the, I guess it'd be the east side of the current blue proposed overlay zone. Wasn't that whole area designated as a wildlife area, or is it, it's kind of protected in the master plan or concept plan area?
Yeah, most of it is within, well, portions of within our jurisdiction are within the Natural Resource Overlay District and the Geologic Hazards Overlay District, the larger swath. So there are provisions that you have to go through different review processes if you want to cut all the trees on a hillside, because that can make that unstable.
Right, so these blue areas were ones that kind of run up, right adjacent to the existing overlay. This map just doesn't show that that area is protected by existing
overlay, yeah.
overlays, right?
Yes, I would say that there is some slight overlaps where some of the area that's in blue, as it turns out when we went back and looked, are protected a little bit in some areas from overlay districts, but the general idea is correct. Most of it doesn't have that higher level of protection.
Okay, and that's kind of what I thought. It's just that the map and the staff report kind of, it almost looks like we picked a little strip, and that big chunk of forested, maybe has a stream going through there, like all of that didn't get any protections, and it looks kind of strange of why would you have a thin little strip of blue, but the current overlay that's planned or that exists for that area just isn't shown on your image, correct?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was going to include it, but it gets very colorful with all the different overlays.
Oh,
in
I'm
place.
sure. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah. For future, it would be helpful though to see that, because they're all interrelated in a lot of ways, including the stuff that the county has, so that
Right, which goes to
it's
kind of
more
what you were saying.
comprehensive.
Yeah, so I don't see anybody raising their hand on Zoom.
O'Donnell's missing.
So I don't have any problems following the Natural Resources Committee recommendation, letting them continue to work on this and work on the heritage tree. I mean, it's kind of, that's why we have this committee, so that they can be advisory to us and provide input, and I really appreciate their time and doing the site visits and working on this issue. I think we just kind of proposed this because we wanted to make sure, I think Denise, you were the one who actually brought this up. So, I think we just wanted to look into it a little bit more. So I really appreciate the Natural Resources Committee doing that work. And so, but I would be very happy to follow what their recommendation is. Commissioner Smith or Commissioner O'Donnell, do you have anything to add? Thoughts?
Nothing in addition to what's already been said. I would have liked to see the map with all the other areas as well, because it is confusing, and that was the only issue I had or question.
I was gonna say, we can always go back, if they feel that this isn't gonna be adequate after they've done all their research and they're talking to property owners, we always have the option to go back and look at this again.
Right.
See if we can make it a little more streamlined and bring a little more protection for those areas. But I'm happy to let them pursue the avenue. I mean, I'm always supportive of somebody voluntarily doing that.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I'm certainly willing to follow the suggestions of the Natural Resource Committee. I'm also aware that it seems like you've got a very cooperative group of private party owners, which is encouraging. And as long as I believe it appears to me that there's some significant private property expanses involved. As long as those folks understand the implications of utilizing the heritage tree designation, I'm fine with whatever the group decides, whatever the people decide that are affected by this.
Ms. Turvey, I did have one question. You mentioned the roads that were laid out in the concept plan for this area. I found that to be a very interesting statement, because I guess I kind of assumed that a developer could come in and kind of propose something similar, but maybe not exact to what we had laid out. And your comment made it sound like the roads were kind of laid out for this area that would support the viewing and protection of these trees. Which one is it? Can you help clarify? Like, are the roads kind of set?
The major roads have a general location already identified within the concept plan. So we know we want 2 roads generally parallel to Beaver Creek Road that are more major roads. We're not talking about like little neighborhood streets or anything like that. And we do know also that some of the location of those is going to be close to where the new proposed habitat protection area or heritage designation area is that the NRC is switching to. And then we also know that there's provisions in the concept plan that closer to the middle of the closer to the middle, halfway down the concept plan, north of south, there's places where we want the road to come close to the edge of that hillside, so you get the vista of the hillside and those trees. So it would come into place where it would be visible and we could have signage for education. So there, I guess my complicated answer is yes and no and a little bit, but they have opportunity to kind of shift the roads around a little bit, but some of the bigger ones, are kind of in the general location. There's only so many options. And then we do know there will be a window into the vista to look east and a location next to the habitat area.
Okay, so it sounds like some pieces of the concept plan are pretty prescribed as to what we would like developers to comply with in order to make sure that the concept plan design is carried out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have anything else for Ms. Turway?
No, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I think we're done with this. City Manager, do you have a report?
Nothing for the work session, no.
All right, well, for that, I think we're adjourned, and our next meeting starts at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.